But like the idea of the starfish, right? Like the guy who
Mm-hmm.
walks on the beach, right, and you throw all the starfish back in the water, and somebody says to him like, "Oh, like you can't save all of them, but like you can save some of them." And so I think that that's something I come back to a lot.
Hi, Ashlyn. Welcome to the Are You Happy? We're so glad to have you here. To begin, could you just tell us about the Sobering Center's mission in Austin and share a bit your role as development and communication manager?
Yeah, so the Sobering Center is doing jail and hospital diversion here in Austin. And so APD has the option to bring folks, EMS and hospitals have the option to refer folks. And then we have a list of about 85 community referral partners. And so that's what we're doing. And then those folks who come to us and need more help are able to get connected to treatment
Yeah,
resources.
yeah,
My role as development and communications manager is really focused on like social media and fundraising
yeah.
efforts and outreach, managing those relationships with those community partners.
So what inspired you to work in harm reduction and help launch the Sobering Center back in 2018? Was there a specific moment or turning point that guided you to this mission, actually?
Yeah, so I mean, the center opened in 2018, but I didn't join the team until 2021. And so
Mm-hmm.
my background is in social work. And so I have a BSW, so a bachelor's in social work, as well as a master's. And I did a lot of research around felony drug possession. And we kept kind of looking for this like
No,
magic
oh, yeah,
side
yeah,
of
yeah.
town, or like what is it that kind of causes these interactions with law enforcement. And one of the things we found through that research is that people were going to jail in crisis instead
Mm-hmm.
of receiving treatment at the hospital or some other kind of support. And so for me, that kind of research really inspired this thought process of like, what does it look like when we provide folks support instead of punishment when they really need help?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I totally understand you. So, why the Sobering Center? Like, the Sobering Center offers a safe, non-judgmental space for people to sober up instead of ending up in jail or the ER. So, how does that support differ from a traditional system?
Yeah, so I mean, in most places, folks using drugs are punished, right? So there's a lot of fines associated with those types of charges, like public intoxication. They end up in jail, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody has a substance use disorder, they end up cycling through over and over again. And
Yeah.
so the center really provides an opportunity for someone to kind of stop that cycle and then kind of evaluate where they're at and decide what kind of help they would like to receive.
Yeah. Do you have any specific things that you need, for example, for people to apply or for people to get to the organization and work with them, or no?
So we just finished renovating our building. So we
Mm-hmm.
have a second floor that is currently empty. And so right now our primary goal is raising funds to help
Mm-hmm.
open that second floor. We're hoping to have some of that accomplished in October. And I really think a big part of kind of our mission and having conversations like this is just making folks
Yeah.
aware that this type of service exists here in Austin, but in other places, and that really talking about kind of the
Yeah.
stigma and things that come
Yeah,
along.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Since you mentioned the second floor, so over 13,000 people have used the center, and since you just opened the second floor focused on connecting people to longer term rehab, can you walk us through a real life example of someone whose path looks different thanks to the center?
Yeah, so the first person we connected to treatment is the person we often talk about when we talk about the second floor. And so he was a guy who he had been sober for an extended period of time and he had started using again and really had a lot of stigma and shame around that. And so he was living on the streets and
Mm-hmm.
he was picked up by either APD or EMS 75 times in 135 days, which is a
Wow,
lot when
a
you do the
lot.
math, right?
Mm-hmm.
And about a dozen of those times he came here to us, right? So sometimes he went to jail, sometimes he went to the hospital, but he came here a lot. And for a long time, he wasn't willing to talk to any of our counselors. He was just kind of so ashamed of what had happened to him. And so on that 12th time, he finally said, "Hey, I'm done. I got to do
Mm-hmm.
something else." And he was living on the streets. He didn't have insurance. He was a veteran, right? He was really in bad shape.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't know, right? But alcohol withdrawal can kill you. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
he was saying, like, I'm going to leave here. I'm not going to drink. And so our staff made the decision to keep him here to make sure that he could get what he needed. And we were able to connect him to treatment, really get him what he needed, and he was able to maintain.
Oh, that's really
Then
inspiring. Something that is like you cannot maybe express your words how this has been life-changing for him after all what he've gone through. But let's just go through the innovation and partnerships that you have. Your collaboration with the UT Austin now allows students to access support by referral. So,
Mhm.
not law enforcement. How did that partnership come about, and what have you learned from it?
Yeah, so the UT partnership has been really interesting because the idea was really to encourage help-seeking behavior, right? So a student throws a party, something happens, everybody kind of looks around and doesn't really know what to do most of the time
Mm-hmm.
because they call 911, right?
Yeah,
Ambulances are expensive. They don't know what's going to happen if the officers
yeah,
show up.
exactly. They are
And so
scared and stuff like that, so that's why I'm asking.
right, exactly. And so we decided that this partnership might be a good idea. So we fall under the amnesty policy. So calling us, there's no sort of punishment, the same way that calling 911, there's no sort of punishment. And that was important to me because, there are people all around town who get to come here and there are
Mm-hmm.
no consequences for that. And so why should a student be punished for doing the right thing and getting help for
Yeah,
somebody who
yeah.
needs it? And so we found that it's not particularly high volume, but for the people who do come here, they're really grateful and they kind of avoided a worse outcome.
Yeah, that's really good. So, with the new second floor set to open in fall 2025, how are you building a capacity for rehab linkages, like both in terms of funding and care coordinating? Like, do you have any events or fundraising or anything, or how do you get the funds?
Yeah, so right now that looks like kind of going back to our community partners and saying, hey, we need to make this happen. Is there anything that you're willing to contribute? And then as well as kind of trying to hustle up funds from folks and participating in kind of local things. So we've done
Mm-hmm.
like by Austin and Giving Tuesday and kind of all of those events, as
Yeah.
well as kind of other more targeted asks for folks. We find that it's difficult to raise funds, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
this is not a population folks tend to feel bad for. And so people are more inclined to give elsewhere. And so making sure that folks really have an understanding of what we're doing here and the impact that their dollar can have. So for every dollar we're spending here at the center, we're generating $1.75 in cost savings.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's in first responder time, that's in tax dollars, that's in all that good stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so that second floor is going to be 14 beds dedicated just to folks waiting on treatment. So it will allow us to double the amount of people that we have waiting on treatment. And then we'll be able to use that first floor space a little bit better for those folks who are sobering up.
Yeah, a lot of challenges, but what has been one of the most unexpected challenges in setting up a non-traditional services like this? Like, how did your team overcome it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think really that's one of those kind of teamwork makes the dream work
Yeah,
moments.
exactly.
So the center opened in 2018, but the founding board and all of those folks who really wanted to start it started talking about this idea in like 2012. And so it really took that much time to get it off the ground. And so the community really came together and said, hey, this is what we have to do. And then when we opened, I think probably one of the biggest barriers was the buy-in from law enforcement, right? And so there was kind of this narrative that this wouldn't actually help people.
hmm
They didn't quite understand it. They didn't understand how it was going to work. And so we spent a lot of time building that relationship. And now we have a
Yeah,
really amazing relationship with APD.
yeah.
So
I was going to ask about communicating courage, like working in communication and development for a harm reduction model. How do you balance sensitivity, public understanding, and fundraising momentum?
I think the balance of that can be really hard because you um, really have to find the nuance in communicating kind of something that is very serious, but also kind of keeping what I really think is the hope in all of this, right?
Yeah.
The folks that we serve have been through a lot, but they're really just so grateful when you talk to them and when you really sit with them and have those kinds of conversations. And so I think finding a way to kind of hold both of those things, which is like not everyone gets better, but the folks that
hmm
do really appreciate it. And so, how do you communicate that in a way that's sensitive, makes sense to
Yeah.
folks? And so, we do a lot of explaining of those things like, this is what this looks like, this is what the outcome is. And then here's how you can contribute to that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Just the will and the motivation that you have to help people, help their life is like really amazing. Let's just talk about the future goals. What's your vision for the Sobering Center over the next couple of years? Are there any new services or outreach strategies you're excited about?
Yeah, so obviously the second floor is a huge one, but we also recently received a grant from Travis County to start providing peer support in
Oh,
hospitals.
really good.
Yeah, so we'll be able to meet folks in the hospital where they're at, and offer them our services, or let's say they don't necessarily need our services, but they need somebody to come with them to a doctor's appointment or go to that
Mm-hmm.
first recovery meeting or whatever that is. And so our staff will be able to go out into the community and really build that relationship with somebody, which is
Mm-hmm.
something we don't currently offer. And so I think that that's going to be really impactful. And I look forward to building out what that can look like outside of hospitals and
Mm-hmm.
in the community in different settings, hopefully. And so I think that that's kind of the other big one that folks are really excited to see.
Yeah, so for someone who's inspired by your work, what's the most meaningful way that they can support you as a donor, volunteer, or advocate?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing folks can do right is you can support us at our website. You can make a
Mm-hmm.
donation, and then any amount that's meaningful to you. And then the other thing would be following us on socials and sharing those
Mm-hmm.
posts and really, I think having hard conversations with the folks in your life, right? So um, the way that we talk about people matters a lot, and people tend to use really um, kind of unhelpful or dehumanizing language when they talk about folks using drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Mm-hmm.
what does it look like to say, hey, somebody's not an addict, they have a substance use
Yeah.
disorder, or like somebody's not clean when they
Mm-hmm.
get sober, right? Like there's all these kind of nuances around language, and we post about those things. And so, what does it look like to have those conversations with folks and make sure that they understand the issues?
Mm-hmm. Since you're sharing a lot of moments and challenges, can you share a specific moment, like really specific, big or small, that made you feel deeply proud of what you're building at the center, based on your work or your teamwork or organization, whatever that you feel something specific?
Yeah, I mean, I think about a guy that we've seen a lot of, and when I got this job, he would come here and he would be kind of really angry when he would leave, and he didn't want to talk to staff, and he was really kind of bristly with us. But
Mm-hmm.
over the years, we've built a really great relationship with him, and so I saw him kind of recently, and he was like downstairs on the floor and like drawing pictures with the medic while like waiting for somebody to do something, and asked me how I was doing and like engaged in like a very kind
Mm-hmm.
conversation with me. And so I think that's what we hear over and over again is like this idea that these folks aren't getting treated kindly out in the community, and that when they come here, they're treated with dignity and care and they trust us. And so we get emails from people. That always makes me really happy after they leave here. And even if they don't necessarily go to treatment, right? Just to know that we made an impact in that way has been really great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we also run a 6th Street outreach program. So I set up a tent on 6th Street and let people blow their BACs and talk to them
Mm-hmm.
about safe alcohol consumption while they're already drunk, which people think I'm crazy, but I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And the last time we were out there, I had a guy come up to me and he said, the last time you were out here, I had a conversation with you and now I'm sober. That was
Oh,
kind of a moment for me that helped
that's
change
yeah,
kind of my
yeah, yeah.
perspective.
That's
And
really
that was really,
motivating you to keep and in this challenge because I was going to ask you the last question about from this podcast, like what guiding wisdoms keeps you grounded in this challenging, like impactful work someone listeners can carry into their lives. That's what I was going to ask you, but I'm just getting some answers now, and they should be really motivated even by talking to you or anything because you have changed their lives. This is really good.
yeah. No, I think that that's the thing is they talk about this a lot, I think, in social work and also substance use. But like the idea of the starfish, right? Like the guy who
Mm-hmm.
walks on the beach, right, and you throw all the starfish back in the water, and somebody says to him, like, oh, like you can't save all of them, but like you can save some of them. And so I think that that's something I come back to a lot. And then there was a guy who sent us an email one time, and he had also been sober, and then he had come to Austin for a concert and drank with his friends, and it had got kind of out of hand, and he came here.
Mm-hmm.
And in his email, he said something like, you know, people drink alcohol to celebrate and also to
Mm-hmm.
self-medicate. And your staff allowed me to do both of those things.
Mm-hmm.
without any judgment. And
Yeah.
so it's those kinds of things that I often come back to. I really do think it's like a worthwhile endeavor to help folks get well.
Yeah, yeah, this is exactly what people should do, not just you, but everyone. So thank you so much, Ashlyn. Your work is transforming lives and shifting how communities respond to addiction. So thank you again.
Yeah, of course. I really appreciate y'all reaching out and taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you.